Well, I'm joined from Westminster now by the Conservative MP Greg Hands, who was behind that letter, and also the Labour MP Stephen Kinnock. A very good evening to you, gentlemen. Thanks very much for being with us on Sky News. Greg Hands, if I can come to you first. Have you heard any more about this meeting at 7:15 between the Prime Minister and Jeremy Corbyn? Are they going to say that the talks are progressing or that they're collapsing?
Well, I don't really know, but I did organise the letter from 12 other former members of the Cabinet, or those who attended Cabinet, and the chairman of the 1922 committee, warning the Prime Minister against having a customs union deal with Labour, that it was both bad policy. I think it would be against the UK interest to be in a customs union with the EU, and also bad politics, because I think she would lose the majority of her Conservative MPs, I think, who would not vote for such a deal. So I think it is a bad idea, but I don't have any prediction of where tonight's meeting is going to go.
So you're saying no to any customs union, but what about some sort of temporary customs arrangement? I mean, there are plenty of shades of customs arrangement, aren't there? She's got to do something to get a deal through.
Well, there already is in the implementation period. That is part of the withdrawal agreement, being in a customs union for that short period. So I don't want to be dogmatic about not being in a customs union for a short but foreseeable period of time. But any sense that we are going to be in a customs union for a longer period of time, or without an exit out of a customs union, I think is a bad idea, because it's very bad for the UK to be in a customs union with no say over trade policy, no say over how the rules are made. With the world's fifth largest economy, we would be unique in the world in having our trade policy. I was the former trade minister, and I was Britain's voice at the table for a couple of years at EU Trade Council. Without us being there, but the decisions being made for the British economy, whilst we're not there at the table, would, I think, be a real mistake in policy, let alone the politics of the matter. OK, well, let's turn to Stephen Kinnock. Greg Hands there saying no way to a customs union, and yet we heard a moment ago from John McDonnell saying that for Labour it's a red line.
Well, I think that the word that we really need to look at here is permanent. I personally think that a customs arrangement, which does include the common external tariff, but which secures trade, frictionless trade, so that we can protect jobs, for example, in our automotive sector, incredibly complex integrated supply chains where components of a car go all over the European Union without any checks. If you start to mess with that, you mess with the entire business model. But I would say that we, as a democracy, will have a general election at some point between now and 2022. I think the deal should be that we make a commitment on that basis, but both parties can campaign on a different manifesto platform if they want to in the election. So Labour may well then campaign to upgrade it to a permanent customs union. Greg Hands' colleagues may campaign for something different. But I think we've got to really give business the security and the stability they need. This is about protecting jobs with 500 million consumers on our doorstep. That means frictionless trade, and that means at least a temporary customs union.
Listening to both of you, it just goes to highlight, doesn't it, what a mess we're in and how split these talks are. Stephen Kinnock, Tom Watson, the Deputy Labour leader, was saying that any deal has to have a confirmatory referendum attached to it. I mean, that's another whole issue, isn't it? Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I don't agree with that, because I think it's really important that we get a deal over the line. And if you try to insert a confirmatory referendum into the deal, we know that Theresa May will never whip her MPs to back it. And without the Conservative whip and the Labour whip, it's very unlikely we'll get a stable majority for anything. So let's get a deal over the line. It's time for British politics to rediscover the lost art of compromise. Then, if colleagues who are campaigning for a second referendum want to try to put that to a people's vote, they can do that after the first deal has gone through, and they can do that very rapidly. But the priority now has to be to break the deadlock. The country desperately needs to go back to politics, which is about what it should be, the future of our public services, the future of our economy. How do we look after our young people and the older generations? These are the things that people really want to be talking about on the doorstep.
Yeah.
We've got to get this deal over the line.
Greg Hands, we've got to get the deal over the line. We've got to have some sort of compromise. What happens if we can't reach compromise in these talks? Where do we go next? There's talk about, I was going to say indicative votes. I think they're now called definitive votes. I mean, is that going to be the next stage?
Well, I think we should look at the one thing that has secured a majority in the House of Commons, and that was Mrs May's withdrawal agreement, but with alternative arrangements to the backstop, the so-called Brady Amendment. That is the one thing so far that has secured a majority when that passed in January. But can I just say something about the customs union? I'm very surprised Stephen Kinnock is in favour of a permanent customs union, because representing, as he does, a big steel-producing constituency, all of our trade remedies, so our trade defences, so what we would use against, for example, Chinese steel dumping, all of those things would be decided at Brussels without the UK having any say whatsoever. That would be one of the big downsides of being in a customs union. So can I just say I'm really surprised that Stephen is in favour of this policy of a permanent customs union. I can't see it makes any sense for Labour overall, and definitely not for Stephen in particular.
He's shaking his head. Do you want to come in?
Greg? Yeah, that's the opposite of what I just said. I said that we should have a commitment to a temporary but comprehensive customs arrangement until such time alternative arrangements can be found. But if we don't have those alternative arrangements, we're chasing unicorns and rainbows, which unfortunately has been what's been happening for the last 3 years and why we've got to the mess that we're in now. So I'm saying a customs arrangement which secures frictionless trade unless and until alternative arrangements can be found. But I also say that, of course, we'll have a general election sometime between now and 2022, and parties may well put something different in their manifestos at that point. We've got to find a compromise, and if we get hung up on the details of what's happening between now and 2022, we'll never get there. Let's get this deal over the line, break the deadlock, and then we can get back to what we're supposed to be doing in Parliament, which is dealing with the future of the country and fixing our broken economy.
So, Greg Hands, do you think that the Prime Minister can bring back her deal for a fourth time in the next few weeks?
Well, no, I don't think she can. I think actually the number of I voted for her deal. I'm not an enthusiast for her deal, but I think given the other options available, that was the best option as presented. But I think actually the number of Conservative MPs opposed to her deal has actually increased since we had the last vote in March. And I'm pleased to hear what Stephen said on the customs union and alternative arrangements. Actually, I quite like him to join our alternative arrangements working group that's looking exactly at alternative arrangements. Myself and Nicky Morgan co-chairing it. We'd love to have him on board and to be able to work cross-party and constructively on finding a better solution that could get majority support in the House of Commons. I don't think Theresa May will get that support for her deal. I mean, I voted for the deal, but I think more Conservative MPs, and there certainly aren't more Labour MPs coming on board to support it. I think it would go down to a bigger defeat at the moment than the last time it was voted on at the end of March.
OK, Stephen Kinnock, what do you think about that invitation? Are you going to take it up?
Well, the point is that what matters more than anything else in all of this is the Good Friday Agreement and protecting peace in Northern Ireland. As things stand, there are no alternative technological arrangements, but I'd be very happy to sit down with Greg and talk about what might be out there. I believe also that what's vital in this is the single market. I've been advocating for 3 years now that we should go into the European Economic Area because actually 80% of the border issues are single market regulatory alignment issues, not customs union issues. So I think if we could combine European Economic Area membership with an arrangement which deals with the customs part of this, then absolutely, I think that's the way forward. It means respecting the result of the referendum, respecting that 52-48 is a mandate to move house but stay in the same neighbourhood. And I think if we can get that compromise over the line, we can start to rebuild our deeply divided country.
We're going to have to leave it there. We'll wait and see what the Prime Minister and Jeremy Corbyn have to say a little later. Stephen Kinnock, MP, and Greg Hands, thank you both very much.
Thank you.